Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, all praises and double honors due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Hamashal, Malak Yahushai. Secondly, this is Brother Yardan, W5 Detroit, coming back at you with yet another cold cut. Today in this cold cut, we will be touching on citizenship laws within the Bible, right? Because when you read the law, you have to get the full understanding thereof. You have to know who is speaking to, who is not speaking to. Because not every law is going to be, thou shalt not do this. It's not going to be as simple as that. You have to really get the idea of who the audience is. And because certain laws, they're going to be discriminatory against the heathen. Certain laws are discriminatory against, or may not always benefit you the way that you think it will, if you understand what I'm saying. A law is a guide, right? It teaches you how to live. You understand? And not every law is going to be, as plain and easy and pretty as thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. Other laws are pretty detailed and intricate, so it's only right that we get the proper understanding thereof. And today in this lesson, we'll be specifically touching on citizenship laws, for lack of better words, because in the scriptures, when you read the law, like I have these examples before us in Deuteronomy 23 and 20, being a citizen of Israel, it benefits you. But if you're from the nations, it doesn't benefit you, you know? So we're going to dive right into it. The first example is before us is Deuteronomy 23 and 20. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to in the land whither thou goest to possess it. So this is a prime example of a law benefiting the Israelites, right? Internally, this nation specifically. This law doesn't benefit every nation. It's not an international law where it benefits everybody or it's for you, if you understand what I'm saying, right? So again, a stranger in this context is the heathen. How do we know? Well, we can go into the blue letter dictionary, or it's like the blue letter Bible to get the Hebrew. But even using context clues, which is very important when you read, it teaches that as at a young age, getting the context of the verse, you understand that this is the heathen, because the brother is who? The brother is Yasharallah. But how do we actually know? Let's start at verse 1. He that is wounded in the stones, or hath his privy member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. They can't go into the temple, right? Who is chiefly in the temple to make sacrifices or to bring their sacrifices? Israel. So, everything that follows, you understand is chiefly for Israel for the most part. I mean, it's the law after all. The law is given to who? Yasharallah, Israel. So when you jump to verse 20, unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury. For those who don't know, usury is nothing but interest. But we'll get the proper definition. Usury is the practice of making unethical or immoral monetary loans that unfairly enrich the lender. Now, of course, Salakia, now, of course, in the kingdom, we won't be moving in the spirit of immorality or being unethical. But understand this: we do have the power by Yahweh Shemel Shai to charge interest or charge usury towards the heathen. All right, and it's going to enrich the lender. Is going to enrich Israel. This allows us to keep money going within our community and within our nation. So this doesn't benefit the heathen. So you can even use this verse as an example to respond to certain coons or Christians that may say the law is for everybody. Well, this law discriminates against the heathen. This is plain upon tables. So the next time, again, your grandmother, your best friend may say, well, God loves everybody. I mean, he's literally showing his dislike and disdain towards the stranger. which is the heathen. So let's get the Blue Letter Bible and let's go into the Hebrew. With all thy getting, get understanding. This is Deuteronomy 23 and 20. We're going to go to tools and then we'll go to stranger, a foreigner and or alien, right? That's plain. That's plain upon tables. Strange of another country and people. Like it says in Proverbs 5 and 3, don't go to that strange woman. You understand? Because again, in certain contexts, in certain chapters, the stranger may be referring to an Israelite that is far away, that is a foreigner, right? But in other cases, a stranger is actually an Israelite. It's like a heathen, and you may be saying, well, how do you know which is which? Well, upon using context clues, who is your brother? Who is the law given to? Chiefly Israel. Deuteronomy is nothing but the second law. So remember, this is Moses speaking to Israel. And when he says, but unto thy brother, he's speaking towards Israel in regards, it's like speaking to Israel and the people that Israel has to deal with, right? Which is the other tribes, which is in turn your brothers. I mean, that's plain upon tables. This is Deuteronomy 15 and 3. Of a foreigner thou mayest exact it again, but that which is thine with thy brother, thine hand shall release. So here's another beautiful example of the Lord discriminating against the heathen. This is what you call it's like yeah, this is what you call a law that benefits Israel. But let's get a little bit more context. Let's get a verse 1. At the end of every 7 years thou shalt make a release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lendeth aught unto his neighbor, who is his neighbor? Who is your neighbor? Your neighbor is people of your own kindred. That's Romans 9 and 4, or 1 on down, I should say. So again, every creditor that lendeth aught unto his neighbor shall release it. He shall not exact it of his neighbor or of his brother, because it is called the Lord's release. So again, using context clues, your brother is the people of your own kindred. Verse 3, of a foreigner thou mayest exact it again, right? Exact it again, but that which is thine with thy brother, thine hand shall release. So dealing with certain lending and things of that nature, of a foreigner, you can exact it again, but of thy own brother, and you got to release it. That's your brother, right? So this law discriminates against the heathen. So in the kingdom, they're not going to be able to keep, if you understand what I'm saying, they're not going to be able to keep it the same way we can because this benefits one person and it discriminates against the other. So we're not on the same equal playing field. So this is what you call a so-called internal law. You know, it's not an international law where a heathen can find himself in a position of an Israelite. Let's get another one in Deuteronomy 14 and 22. One of my favorites. It's like it. That's not it. 14 and 21. Because it's going into the so-called dietary law. Certain things you may eat and you may not eat, right? But let's read verse 21. Ye shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. And something that dies of itself could be, it get torn by another, or it get bit by another beast, and it's just, or it may have a mad cow disease or whatever, right? Just know if it dies of itself, thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it unto an alien. For thou art an holy people. Who is the holy people? In Deuteronomy 7 and 6, Israel. He's saying, thou, you are an holy people. Unto the Lord thy God, thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. So again, remember, who is Moses directing all these words to? Or the Lord, who is he directing all these words to? Ye are the children of Israel. That's who is being directed to. So when he says, yea, shall not, keeping everything in its proper context, yea, meaning you shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Who is this you? Who is this yea? Israel. We're the subject. Shall not eat anything that dies of itself. Right? Thou shalt give it unto the stranger. So if the yea is Israel being the main subject, who is the stranger? By default, it'll have to be the heathen. That's plain upon tables. So this discriminates against the heathen as well. So in the kingdom, if something dies of itself, I'll be in sin to give it to my brother. Not that I will want to do that or think about it, because we're going to be in the kingdom, and being in the kingdom, you'll be perfect. But just know this: I am able to give it to a heathen, and I get to watch his ass eat something that dies of itself. You know why? Because I don't give a damn about him, and the Lord doesn't give a damn what happens to him. Because if the Lord truly loved them, he would say, okay, this applies to y'all too. You know, not to say the laws that are universal, that shows that the Lord loves them, but just know that the Lord is just showing that disdain towards the heathen. You understand? Because there still has to be justice in the land. So the heathen can't kill. That doesn't mean the Lord loves them by telling them don't kill. I mean, you still have to be just and have equity in the land. But the certain little things, so-called little things, the Lord is like, I don't really care. Y'all can eat that filth. That's not love. So let's get Zechariah 14, verse 17. Instead of verse 16. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. The heathen are going to have to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. What's the the origins of the Feast of Tabernacles? Was it intended for them? Not necessarily, but just know, that's one of those universal or international laws that everyone's going to have to keep, right? And it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem, and I want to pause by saying this: Israel's going to do it automatically by default, by the way of being perfect in the kingdom. So whatever follows after this, it doesn't apply to Israel. It's going to apply to someone else, which would be who? The nations. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. The Lord is still going to discriminate against them in the kingdom. If they don't keep the commandments, right, being in slavery, hey, they're going to get jammed up by not getting any rain. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean that the Lord loves them. Being when you have the righteous in leadership, and being in a position of power over all the nations, those nations have to follow after. They have to be on board. You understand? And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen. So if it wasn't clear previously in Deuteronomy 23 and 20 and Deuteronomy 15 and Deuteronomy 14:21, I mean, it's here. It's plain now. If nothing made sense, hey, here's the nail in the coffin. It literally says he will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. That's plain. We did skip Leviticus. Let's check that out. Here we go. And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, I will even set my face against the soul that eateth the blood, and will cut him off from being come off among his people. Right, and this applies to everybody. Does that mean that the Lord loves, the nations? Like, there's certain things that the Lord just wants them to keep, and others, He doesn't really give a damn about. But again, that in itself shows that he doesn't really care about these nations. You know, he's like, to hell with them. So, this is internal international law, so called, what Esau may call it. And this again, this is pretty important because when you read further into the scriptures, into the accounts of your forefathers, you find that they understood even the law of the land, how certain things are internal and international. And there are other examples which I have, and we'll dive into it right now. But just know the Lord said, "Be not ignorant of anything." So that's why we're diving this deep into it. So here's the first example, and here's a little note: some laws are universal, while others are discriminatory. This is universal. This applies to everybody. You know, I can't discriminate against the heathen and say, no, you're going to eat blood. The Lord already said he can't. So, this is a universal law. So here's an example of Paul understanding. Um, well, let's just dive into it. Let's just read it. But Paul said unto them, they have beaten us openly, uncondemned, being Romans, right? And I bring this up because every nation, at the end of the day, they a lot of their laws are based from the Bible. So even with that, being said, there are certain laws that's going to benefit the citizens of that nation, and then there's going to be certain laws that don't benefit that nation. It's like not that nation, but the outsiders, I would say. So again, here's the example. This is Acts 16:37. But Paul said unto them, they have beaten us openly, uncondemned, being Romans. Right? This is an account of Paul addressing himself as a Roman. But in Philippians 3 and 5, it says he's an Israelite. Right? So this is another example of Paul using wisdom and understanding the laws of the land and citizenship laws to deliver himself from a situation. Being Romans and have cast us into prison, and now do they thrust us out privately? Nay, verily, but let them come themselves and fetch us out. But what is the purpose of Paul saying they have beaten us openly uncondemned, being Romans? What does being a Roman have to do with being beaten openly uncondemned? So, here's here's proof that Paul knew the laws of the land and that he knew certain citizenship laws to deliver him out of a sticky situation. Now, that's not to say you have to learn all the laws of this land, but understanding little things here and there can go a very long way. A very long way. So this is Latin, Fascinus et est vincere, civium, Romanium, Silusius verberi, right? Which translates to, it is a deed to conquer a Roman citizen, a crime to beat. This is a famous saying, right? And Paul knew this saying, which is why he said they have beaten us openly uncondemned, being Romans, right? So Paul, he understood, there is some benefits in being a Roman, right? Meaning that there's um, certain, it's like it means that if you're not a Roman, if you get beaten openly uncondemned, nobody's going to really give a damn, you know? So we sort of see the correlation with how the Lord set up the law and how the heathen, pretty much copied. So let's go down. You have something called Porcia. Roman citizens were exempted from degrading punishments, right? Only if you're a Roman citizen, right? If you're not a Roman citizen, then you're not exempt, right? From degrading punishments. And anything can happen to you. Similarly to what we read earlier in or in Leviticus 17:10, it's like not 17:10, but 14:21. If a heathen eats something that dies of itself, I mean, so what? It is what it is. But us, hey, I can't make somebody eat something that dies of itself that is of my own kindred or my own nation. So let's go back to it. Roman citizens were exempt from degrading punishments, such as that of scourging. It was the heaviest of all of the charges brought by Cicero against Verus, the governor of Sicily, that he had broken this law. Right, and we read that earlier. The word civis Romanus, some acted almost like a charm in stopping the violence of provincial magistrates. Right, Saint Paul was a citizen by birth in Acts 2 and 28. It's like 22 and 28, right? So Paul knew this. Paul understood citizenship laws, right? Jake, you don't know no citizenship laws. Not to say, you're required or you have to, but understand that it can go a long way. So let's get Deuteronomy 20, it's like Acts 22 and 28. And the chief captain answered with a great sum obtained obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, but I was freeborn, right? 'Cause he was freeborn. He's not a Sicilian. He's not or really, I should say, a barbarian from the island of Malta. He's no weird stranger. He's a Roman. He said this, he made mention of this in three accounts, that I have. So let me make sure that's exactly what it is. And the chief captain answered with a great sum, obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, but I was freeborn. It's actually a little bit more I want on that. Yeah, we can start verse 26, Salakia. Ooh, starts 25. Oh, this whole chapter is good. Okay. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and condemned? So Paul understood the law. Of course, the scriptures, the holy law, but he also understood the Roman law as well. That's why he asked him that question. Not everybody understood that to this greatest extent. Not everybody will really pull that card. Hey, Paul is asking this as hey, what you doing? He's flexing his knowledge, I would say. Hey, and the Lord, and he already knew the Lord. He knows that the Lord, wants us to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. He even says in the Gospels that the children of the world are wiser than the children of the light. So verse 26 reads, when the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. He said, hold up, relax. This man's a Roman, because guess who else has to abide by that? The other Romans. And if you're another Roman and you get caught doing that, you're going to get jammed up. In a similar fashion, if I make another Israelite eat blood or eat something that died of itself, hey, I'm gonna get jammed up. So this law is deep. The scriptures is deep. It's important to understand this because it allows us to really see our forefathers move in wisdom and allow us to see the scriptures at another angle, because through this angle we can perceive through the spirit that Paul knew the law, and even in that it helps us understand how to operate in this world, that it doesn't hurt to know certain things to you know pretty much advance this truth and to not hinder it, because again he's saying all of this really at the end of the day so that the word can have free course, so he can continue to do the work. That's the entire reason why he's learning, or he knew certain things you know so let's get this. All right, this is Roman law, Jus Gentium. Law of nations. In legal theory, the law which natural reason establishes for all men, as distinguished from just civils or the civil law peculiar to one state or people. So that's why I said earlier, so called international law, or in other words, the law of nations, right? Meaning that it's going to apply certain things in the law is going to apply to everybody, right? Versus the was that I believe Justice Civitas. Among the Romans, the collections of laws which are to be observed among all the members of a nation were so called, right? So for an example, so for an example, this, you know, saying civis Roman sum, right? It acted as a charm to stop the violence, you know. So that means one Roman has to take heed to this and make sure he doesn't transgress that certain just civitatis, towards another Roman. It is opposed, in other words, it is contrary to just gentinia, which is what we just read, which is the law which regulates the affairs of nations among themselves, right? Salakia. So let's see how much more we have left. Oh yeah, it's something I want to should have brought out earlier in Deuteronomy 15 and 3. So Deuteronomy 15 and 3 again. Of a foreigner thou mayest exact it again. When you go into the blue letter dictionary, or blue letter Bible, I should say, when you go into that word exact, and I'll pull it up here. What is that? Deuteronomy 15 and 3. Let's see. I got one more after this, one more precept. This is exact. To press, drive, oppress, demanding pressure, ruler, taskmaster, tyrant, lord, exactor of tribute, to hard press. See, so we can hardly press of a foreigner, and we can oppress them. We can oppress them. We can drive them. But, right, meaning, however, but on the contrary, that which is with thine brother, thine hand shall release. That which is of thy own kindred and of thy own nation, thou shalt release. So, Esau has their whole legal system based off the scriptures, down damn near down to the T, right? They opened up the book of the law, they found out certain things discriminate against them, and they found out certain things benefit Israel. They found out certain things are universal. That's exactly how it is today. If not today, at least with Rome. But we do find that there is some benefits to being an American, so called. In certain particular situations, you can use that to your advantage. Because if you do a crime here, being a so-called illegal alien, whether you're from Mexico, Germany, wherever, because at this point, it really doesn't matter where you come. If you come here illegally, you'll be considered an illegal alien, and that goes back to the law as well. An alien, right? A foreigner, right? If you come here as a foreigner, and you're not going to have that same compassion in court as an American. You're going to get judged a little bit differently. You're going to be looked at a little bit differently because you're a foreigner. But I digress. Um, just want to make that a quick point that a foreigner may have exacted again. So let's get Acts. I'll close out with this. So Paul, he wasn't a fool. He wasn't an idiot. He knew the law. He knew the scriptures. He